The Cambridge campaign against the hippies, announced a few days ago by the city's mayor, focused today on District Court, where 20 of 21 persons arrested in a police raid on a so-called hippie apartment near Central Square were arraigned on a series of 24 charges, mostly dealing with drugs. I asked Sergeant Duncan O'Neill, who directed the raid on the group known as the Diggers and who was in court today. Depending upon your point of view, the Diggers can be described as a despicable den of drug users or as a welcome refuge for some of society's young lost souls. A member of the Diggers, who indicated he missed the raid Sunday merely by minutes, was in court today to comfort and counsel his comrades. I asked Vernon Becker if he thought the hippies were receiving undeserved police attention in Cambridge.
Well, I feel that this is mostly just a political move. I don't see any sense in it because the hippies are a large part of the population of Cambridge, and I think they're some of the best people here.
If this police activity is stepped up, do you think it will cause the hippies to leave Cambridge?
I think, if anything, it'll cause them to strengthen their union in Cambridge and add to their numbers. The numbers are constantly increasing.
Now, you're a member of the Diggers, several of whom were arraigned in court this morning. Do you feel that the police are harassing them because of their unconventional behavior, their unorthodox patterns of conduct, or is it really on the matter of drug addiction?
I don't think it's really a matter of the police harassing on their own. I think it's a matter of police being pressured to harass because of long hair and odd dress and so on. I don't think drug addiction is the main matter of harassment. Drug addiction is not something I'm familiar with because I don't know anyone who is addicted. It's not. Any of the drugs that I know people use are not addictive drugs.
Do you figure that there's going to be more of this sort of thing in the future? And what'll the answer to it all be?
More of what sort of thing? You mean use of?
More arrests, more raids.
Well, I think if the mayor keeps on his rampage, there probably will be more arrests.
Dr. Fadiman, what are the factors that persuade individuals to become hippies?
I'd like to leave that to Dr. Allen.
Doc.
5 seconds.
Dr. Fadiman, why do so many people seem to get so enraged about hippies?
Well, it appears that most of the hippies are from middle-class, well-bred, well-educated families. They are often have several years of college, if not a full college degree, and they're attacking the very culture that they came from. It's not a case of the minority group saying, I want into the beautiful middle-class American technological culture. It's members of that same culture saying, I want out, it stinks. I want to move into a culture which has values that I prefer. It's people who know what the culture is saying they don't like it, and this, I think, is what infuriates the main critics of the hippie subculture.
What's your feeling about the Cambridge mayor's reactions to the hippies around Harvard?
Well, he probably has forced many of the hippies to move into other communities where they can proselytize, sell drugs more easily, and in general increase the number of hippies in the Boston area. He also drew unfortunate attention to the fact that Cambridge must possess a large amount of substandard housing, because hippies migrate to substandard housing areas because the rents are lower and they do live in a state of very low economic status. They are poor, in a word. And with very little money and a lot of time, they move into areas which offer them the conveniences, probably not the bathrooms of home, and it appears that Cambridge is full of such places. I was surprised to learn of the difficult economic conditions in Cambridge which the mayor brought to our attention.
Dr. Allen, the popular view seems to be that hippies are devoted to drugs and are seeped in sex. Is this fairly accurate?
It's a half-truth. The psychedelic drug, or the psychedelic drugs, were the very heart of the hippie movement, but more in their effects, in the idea of brotherhood and union with their fellows, which many of the hippies experienced under the psychedelic drug, certainly influenced the whole hippie movement in Haight-Ashbury and up and down the coast.
Now you have communal living here. Do you feel that this indicates, as it does to some of the members of public audiences, that you might be living a life of promiscuity here?
Well, I mean, they could think that. If our doors are always open and we invite people up here, and they'll see that we're not, that we have very strong moral codes, and we don't believe in free love and free sex, but in the highest principles of love, and that's what we're devoted to.
Well,
Mayor Hayes, is Cambridge becoming the hippie center of the East?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the hippie center of the East yet, but unless we take strong measures, we may very well become that.
I know you've called for a complete crackdown on hippies. What steps are you taking, and what do you mean by a crackdown?
Well, a crackdown, I mean this, by using every legal means possible. Now, for example, last night we were able to get a search warrant on this particular apartment, and we found marijuana and 17 people involved. The night before, it was a question closing down on housing code enforcement. We can use it licensing enforcement. We have sufficient laws and with sufficient ordinances. All it means is just putting that extra effort in enforcement and calling upon our landlords not to rent to these type of people.
Would you describe for us what the scene was like last night when you and the police went to that apartment on Columbia Street? Of that petition now.
At the present time, it's in court. The city solicitor's rule is not a proper matter to go on the ballot of the city of Cambridge.
Do you think that they are picking Cambridge to live in the manner in which these hippies enjoy living because of the educational institutions?
I would say partly because of the educational environment. It could be just one university. It's a whole complex. But I'd say another part of it is there is dope and marijuana, narcotics are available in the general Greater Boston area, and some of it, quite sure, is in Cambridge.
Is it difficult for the police to make arrests as far as drug use is concerned?
On this particular case, for example, this house, this apartment we went into last night, the city police department has been there before, but has been unable to make an arrest because they didn't have sufficient search warrant. Legal complication here with the courts, and the courts have got to change their opinions about this in order that our police can actually get into more of these places and really crack down on them.
How many raids has the special narcotics squad that Cambridge has set up made lately?
They've actually made in the last couple of months 5 raids. Last night, for example, was a key one, a very important one. Also, the night before, we had the closing of the house on Chauncey Street, and we had another raid on Putnam Avenue. A couple were taken there. They were actually users and sellers of marijuana. That was an important raid at that point.
And I imagine they will continue to put this drive on until what?
This is a part of an all-out drive on the hippies until all the hippies are moved out of the city of Cambridge.